So I wanted to kick off with this quote from Tiffany Schlein. Let me go ahead and share my screen just so it's a little bit easier to see. With this quote from Tiffany Schlein. So I love this. She says, technology is just us. It's not this separate thing. It extends our ability to connect. And this was from her TEDx talk back in 2011. And what I like about it is that it's a reminder that sometimes people get wrapped around the axle around technology, but really all it is it's an enabler, and it is our servant, not the other way around. And so, I just wanted to put that out there as something to have with us as we go forward. So let me go ahead and kick this off. So welcome everybody if you're just joining. Again, this is Cultivating Connection in a Hybrid Environment. But let me just do a quick introduction. So my name is Brian Tarallo. I'm a certified professional facilitator and a certified virtual facilitator. I'm also a master MBTI practitioner, one of around 160 globally. And I've got a book out there. It's called Surviving the Horror of Online Meetings. Heather Martinez, who is on the call, actually did the lettering and the layout for it. And it actually has won a couple of independent book awards, and I couldn't have done it without Heather's help. Check it out. And thus ends the plug. I'm going to go ahead and move on then. Again, I'll put the voting code at the top of the screen if you're not in there. But our outcome for this afternoon is to explore human solutions to a tech-driven hybrid world. And let me tell you what I mean by that. There is tons of information out there around the technical advice. We're going to address this from a human perspective because, well, hybrid is half human, right? And so we're mostly going to spend time on the human dynamic that has to do with the hybrid world and hybrid work. So we're going to first kick off by talking about some of the challenges of hybrid work. We're going to unpack our backpack a little bit. We're going to cover some ground rules, which is to say some ground rules for good hybrid work environments. We'll talk about energy and engagement and how you can keep participation high in hybrid. We'll also go over some tech tips, but again, it's going to be with a human twist, okay? So that you're not going to get a litany of troubleshooting advice. We're also going to talk about how is it that you build trust and safety. A lot of my clients have been doing a lot of hiring lately, and some of these people have never worked together before. And so how do you build a team with people who have never actually seen each other face to face? Heather, thank you for the link in chat. I appreciate that. We're going to then move to personal presence. How is it that you can show up as your best self in a hybrid environment? And finally, we'll close with the Q&A. So a couple of roles. So participants, please participate. The goal here is to actually add to the shared pool of knowledge. There are a lot of blanks in this PowerPoint that I'm sharing with you. So please answer some of the questions that I've got in Menti. And what will happen is at the end of this, I'll PDF the whole thing. I'll send it out to you so you'll have it as a resource. So consider this an opportunity to build a pick list of different ground rules, best practices for yourself. I mean, thank you again to the 17 of you for showing up. I'm hoping that we'll all walk out of this a little bit smarter. And if you contribute to this, then, well, you'll have this as a resource. My role here is just to guide the process. And really the only agreement that I would say is just practice where it's safe. Consider this a safe environment to try some of the techniques that I'm sharing with you before you take it out to your clients and in front of a live studio audience. And again, use that Q&A function because we'll get to that at the very end. Okay. And yes, you're going to get a copy of these slides. We are going to build this slide deck together. Always get that question. Will I get a copy of these? Yep, you're going to get it. If you hang out a little bit at the very end, I'll be able to PDF them all and drop them into the Zoom chat so you can have them before you leave. Okay. All right, so I want to kick off with our first Menti poll. Which of these represents the hybrid work environment? So if you take a look at your phone, it's a little small. You can turn it sideways. You can use the 2-finger stretch to make it a little bit bigger. But which of these would you say represents the hybrid work environment? You can drag that little dot to whichever one to you represents the hybrid work environment. Don't forget to hit submit down at the bottom. You may have to scroll down a little bit to find it. What represents hybrid work to you? Okay, so we got one person who's voted for the, looks like the cardboard boxes. I got the drum set. There's the owl, the gears. And I got 4 people who have weighed in so far. If anybody's having a challenge with Menti, now's a good time. So go ahead and speak up. We'll try to troubleshoot it for you. Go ahead and go off mute if you need a little bit extra help with this one. So I got 12 people who have weighed in so far. I'd like to open it up again, just because this is a small group. Might not be able to do this with 400 people tomorrow, but we'll give this a shot here. If anybody would like to share what image they picked and why, I'm just going to invite you to go off mute. I'll see it, then I'll call on you, and you can speak up. So why'd you pick? Yeah, Ginny, please.
I picked number 7, the blocks, because to me, the hybrid environment requires lots of pieces that have to be put together.
Certainly feels like that, doesn't it, Ginny? Thank you for that. Let's go Karen and then Kimberly.
So, it is a balancing act that we have to figure out how to, arrange everything and understand how to align so that we don't fall over.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. By the way, Lori dropped a hint into chat. Maybe a little bit tough to see if you've got a small phone. So you can open it up on your desktop as well. And I will go ahead and drop the link into Zoom chat if you prefer to use Menti on your desktop. They're both okay. Let's go Kathy and then Kimberly.
Yeah, so I picked the drums. Reason because it can be anything from something that's harmonious, even if you have different sounds, different beats, to just total chaos, like people just beating the hell out of something. Um, and I think even when you plan for hybrid, there's always something you haven't planned for that comes up that you have to address. And if you don't address it, that's all people remember.
It can feel like getting beat up a little bit. Thanks for that, Kathy. And then Kimberly, and I think
Sorry,
Lord,
I'm just
go
going to
ahead.
pile on. I'm just going to pile on because I also picked the drums.
Sure.
I figured that running a hybrid meeting is kind of like being a jazz drummer, where there's a lot of improv that's going on, and you've got to be able to, jump in on any kind of a beat. And then also some of your clients are probably rock and roll, some of them are more classical, some of them, so the drumming that you do is really got to sort of meld with the client as well in the whatever song they're singing.
Yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt your flow.
No, not at all. And some of this work feels a little bit more avant-garde than others. So yeah, completely agree with you. So let's go Kimberly and then Carly, you've got the final thought on this one before we move on.
I picked the boxes as well, and I'll just build on what the previous person said about the boxes. I've done a few of these now, and it is almost triple the work of doing either all remote, virtual, or all, in person, because you're trying to build for two environments, and I can totally empathize with teachers who struggled with, when the schools were locked down, to trying to do address both ways of learning and both presences at the same time. So I'm hoping we can talk a bit about how do you lessen the amount of work it takes to support both.
I hope so. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like it's a lot more work. Okay, Carla, I think you've got the final thought on this.
Sure. I chose the owl, and the owl looked confused and sideways, and that's how I feel some days on endless Zoom calls. So that's why I chose the owl.
Thank you. That's the one that I would have picked. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on then. Thank you for that. Let's do another one. Complex, complicated, compelling, hard, mega work. Love that one. You can do multiple words, by the way. So if there's some that you like. Not the best form of work. Yeah, cool. We got a Zoom bomber. Okay. Would anybody like to speak to their word? I'm saying complex, challenging, and creative. By the way, I already got rid of the Zoom bomber. That happens.
Well done. I just want to say creative. I think that it's such a wonderful thing to try to solve in terms of so many puzzle pieces. How do we get everyone to make sure that they have a way to engage, and how can we keep that equitable while being productive? I think hybrid meetings can be a lot of fun, but also require a lot of creativity.
Most definitely. Thank you for that. And Hermika, what's coming up for you?
Challenging for a couple reasons. During COVID, believe we had between 25 and 30% new hires who had never been in the company. On top of that, we have complete redesign in buildings. I've had the pleasure of being in the building a couple of times and spent hours trying to figure out how to use the new equipment. There was no orientation. It was awful. And it's hard to get people to kind of get on the same page. We spend more time going through tech issues. And how do people acclimate themselves when 25% of the people are new to the company and they've never stepped foot in the door and connected with anyone? So it's been a challenge.
Nice, thanks. We'll do another one. So hybrid. So this is one definition that I found around hybrid. So hybrid is a collaborative work environment with participants in 2 or more separate locations where a distance communication technology is used to create a synchronous experience. That's a long definition. Here's another way of thinking of it, right? If you've got 2 or more people who are in person and 1 person who is virtual or remote, well, that's hybrid, and that's all it takes. So again, 2 or more people who are hanging out with each other, and then 1 person that's virtual, that's a hybrid environment. Now, today we are all virtual. I wish we could do this in such a way that some of us were in the room together and we could actually experience hybrid, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, you know, I don't think we could. I would love to fly out and hang out in Durango with Heather, but I don't think we can all do that right now. Okay. So just a quick definition. Let's go on to another poll. So why is hybrid a challenge? It's new. It's a new way of working. You have to help all feel included and engaged. Yeah, we're going to talk about inclusion. Many moving parts to consider. Not everyone is at the same level of tech savviness. A lot of technology pieces to juggle. The experience is very different for how people are engaging. You need to design and facilitate for both. Connection is in like the human connection, I'm assuming. How do we do it? Cognitive overload, too many parts, too many pieces. Like there's that juggling, spinning plates. There's a lot of stuff going on. Ensuring that we don't favor one group over another. If there's a mass of people in one place and whoever is not there is ignored, needing more support, trying to do too much. We have to stay engaged and be active listeners. Many complex components. It's hard to do with just one facilitator, most def. Now, again, this is, by the way, a lot of you have been a part of Scribes workshops where we focus on facilitation. This goes beyond that, really. We're going to talk about work and the work environment. So how do we make more of, how do we work in a hybrid environment in a more effective way? Okay. Let's spend just a second on inclusion. This is, to me, the biggest challenge with hybrid is that case for inclusion, because I believe it's the job of any good manager or facilitator to be inclusive, is to create a container for safe conversations, because arguably I would say the most important thing that groups do is to make decisions. And if you are not creating a safe container where people can speak up, say what's on their mind, say the unpopular opinion, then you're not going to make the best decisions. Right? If you're not hearing all voices, you're not going to make the best decisions. And unfortunately, all it takes is in a hybrid meeting for one person to lean over in the boardroom and whisper into somebody else's ear to alienate everybody else that is online. They're like, well, what the heck? How come I don't get to hear that? Right? And just like that, you can erode trust. You're being exclusive. You destroy that container of inclusion. And so it's very, very difficult then to be inclusive in a hybrid environment, because a really simple human communication can be seen as exclusive. Okay. Before we move off of this, I'm wondering if there's any thoughts either on what you see, what you wrote, or what I just said. Any thoughts on that one? Feel free to go off mute. I'll call on you. Any thoughts on that? The idea of inclusion. Laura, yeah.
The whole thing of proximity bias.
Absolutely. What's proximity bias?
Proximity bias is what happens when you have a hybrid workplace and you have some people who are on site, who have casual access to the power brokers and decision makers, and you have others who are remote and in the field and have no such access. And so everything that remote workers do has to be very, I'm going to use the word contrived, or you could use the word thoughtfully planned for.
Right. So how do you keep those people who are not in your field of vision present and in mind. Thank you for that, Laura. And you're getting some love in Zoom chat, by the way. Okay.
Oh,
Uh, so by the way, I should tell you that not all of the stuff that I'm going to share you is just, coming out of my head. I've been doing kind of a meta study. I've been reading everything that I could get my hands on around hybrid. And the one of the things that I found is that a few groups were working on this, guess what, prior to the pandemic, believe it or not. Especially the military and a lot of government agencies who had distributed workforces all over the place. And so I actually, picking my way through some manuals, I found some things that were pretty interesting. And so rather than going through all of the 3-ring binders that I was able to find, I'm giving you just kind of the highlights. So here were the top challenges that I found as I was looking for it. First of all is exclusion. That's what we were just talking about. It is easy to feel left out if you're not in the room. Right? Laura, that's your proximity bias right there, right? If you're not in the room, it's easy to feel left out. And then if you are in the room, it's easy to forget about those who are not in the room. Again, proximity bias. Another one is interference. So participants' experience of each other is reduced. Like right now, we're talking to each other, but everybody's head is shrunken down to this like 2x3 square, right? I'm not getting the full experience of Kathy and Mary and Ginny. Like I would have more data coming at me. I'd have more sensory input coming at me if we were in the room. So our experience of each other is reduced. It's harder to read you because of how small you are. Audio video technology can malfunction. We had a Zoom bomber a little bit early on, right? We go into these things with an attitude of wonder. I wonder what's going to break today. And not everybody's got the same level of tech savviness. So they may or may not have their cameras on. That's the other thing that you see in a lot of hybrid meetings, hybrid work environments. Not everybody has their cameras on. Not everybody has that same access to good audio video to be able to project themselves at all. Complexity, you all have already been talking about this. So there is specific intention that has to go into your design of your workflow, of your processes, of your operations, in order to make sure that your hybrid processes are being inclusive. Participation is going to be uneven. Those folks that are going to be in the room are going to have an advantage that the folks that are not in the room won't be able to enjoy. And then finally, resistance, and you've heard a little bit of that too. It's the spinning plates, it's the juggling. There's too much going on. It's overwhelming. I can't take it, right? I just want to quit. I don't like this hybrid stuff. I wish I was back in the room with people. The technology can be off-putting and intimidating. Okay? So again, this is the same thing that you just handed me with your answers just a second ago. Thinking about it in these 4 ways will carry this forward as we move on. Okay. So I'd like to get you into breakouts, if that's all right. And let me go ahead and set those up real quick. So it'll be just speed breakouts. We'll do this for about 5 minutes. And what I'd like you to discuss, well, first of all, do quick introductions. Not everybody knows everybody, but do quick introductions. And then I'd like you to have a quick discussion around how you might make hybrid specifically more inclusive, okay? I'll set it up. You don't have to worry about everything. You're going to magically go into your breakouts. And we'll do this, here's a weird number. We'll do this for about 6 minutes. If anybody has any challenges, just hit ask the host for help at the bottom of the screen. I will see you back in 6 minutes. Again, introductions. How might you make hybrid more inclusive? I'll see you in 6. Welcome back. So if you don't mind, take just a minute. Go ahead and use Mentimeter and give us a little bit of insight into your conversations. And by the way, behind the scenes, I forgot to mention that you could actually use Mentimeter to take some notes. I will remember that for tomorrow. So a couple things that I'm noticing. Actually, I noticed a trend among what you shared here. Eliminating hybrid, and then right after it, make everyone virtual. So like there's a trend here around why even go hybrid at all if you don't have if you don't have to, right? Yeah, I try to make that case with my clients quite a bit. I don't always win. They want to get together. And I try to say, look, there's got to be a real compelling case for that. I'm wondering how other people have dealt with that. If you've pushed people to say, you know what, we should probably all be virtual, or how you handle it when they say, well, there's a few of us who can be together. And if you want to go off mute, I'll see it and I'll call on you. I'd love to hear how you have handled that. Yeah.
Brian, I was just explaining in my room that I'm doing a 70-person meeting where they are very intentionally bringing people. They're making every effort, and the only people who will not be virtual, be in present, is the speakers.
Mhm.
And they're making a lot of effort, and they're like insistent on it, and they want to do team building with 70 people. But that's the decision they took, as opposed to having people here and there.
Mm. Yeah. So how did you guide them on that one?
For seven, well, because they have a lot of experience running really tight meetings, and they are very democratic people. They let everyone who's a co-chair design their meeting. I'm really
Mhm.
coming in to just tighten it up.
Yeah.
And they've already done a hybrid meeting recently that worked. I'm going to rely on their guidance, and I luckily know the venue very well.
Lucky. Okay, so it's that experience that's there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go Karen and then Moon Y. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So Moon Y, same thing. I saw that you were off mute.
Yeah, so I have done hybrid or distributed for actually dates. And yes, I have been trying to push if one person remote, everybody go virtual.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, I got a lot of pushback. Like, no, we have a mass people here and we want to get together. So what I did is I then take up to be the facilitator to ensure that the people who are not in the room are not forgotten. Will specifically pause so that they can actually talk. I can specifically make sure people actually call on the phone so that the people not in the room can call in, because a lot of times they actually forgot, so they didn't even call in the dial-in number on those Polycom phones or whatever, those conference phones before. They were ages ago. So yeah, so you make sure you have a facilitator to ensure that it's inclusive.
Cool. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Lori, what's coming up?
I think we need to embrace hybrid. And the reason for this is because I think we need to teach our clients how to fish, because they're having meetings without us hybrid. And so when we get into a meeting, either face-to-face or hybrid, we have to deal with the leftovers of people feeling not included or whatever if they aren't doing it well in their own world. And so I think that it's time for us to step up and just go, this is the world. And to start really coming up with some good solutions for this, because people are doing it. And if we're not leading in this, then who is? Who is? So so my suggestion was to especially if you've got a meeting that's going to be a longer meeting, or you're working with an ongoing team, is that at the beginning you just say, hey, one of the things that's going to be really important is that we're inclusive. How do we want to make that work in your culture?
Yeah.
And build that into the agenda. I'm starting to get on a soapbox about this, because I think that I agree. I would rather have them all remote or all face to face, but I think we need to be thinking bigger than that. I think we need to be thinking about what really helps people collaborate in their life and their work.
You're getting a lot of love in Zoom chat right now, and I'm seeing a lot of, there's a lot of applause, and if you are on that soapbox, I mean, Lori for president, we'll vote for you. Why not? Yeah, I mean, because here, and Hermika, I'll get you in a second. I agree with you, and the reason for it is if we don't, they're going to do it on their own, and they're going to do it poorly. And they're going to adopt some really bad habits. They're going to stick in their culture, and they're going to make things even worse, right? Okay, Hermika, sorry, over to you.
I just had to say, woohoo, Lori. And there's a ton of opportunity out there to equip people to be able to work virtually. The two things that we have that is pretty scary is everyone's scared of technology. And I even wanted to have you, Brian, come in person, and they're like, whoa, no, we can't do that. It's very difficult because people are afraid of the technology, and they're not really sure how to really design and plan effective meetings. And there's a profound effect on that. People get burned out. They get burned out. They don't get work done. We're not productive. We're spending time in fruitless meetings because people are spending 20 minutes trying to get the room connected with the person here. And then the other bad behaviors that come into the room are there. And it takes away from what we're there for in the first place. So I totally agree. Lori, yay.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other thoughts on this? By the way, there's a ton of great content in here. Laura had pointed out in chat that a lot of what's in here is about meetings, not so much about work. But, you know, in a way, that's kind of where work happens. If you're just plugging away on your own, who cares where you are? You could be in person, you could be at home, you could be at any desk, right? It seems like if we're focusing around meetings, maybe that could be the emphasis of this. Rachel, what's coming up?
So I think just one thing addressing work, not meetings, is really leaning into asynchronicity, and like collaborating in ways that are asynchronous and usually digital, like a Google document or like shared things like that, where it's like, I know I have a company who uses Teams a lot, which is, a replacement for email, but just thinking about that as an approach for hybrid, because that really, and then using the digital, I see the digital first tools, but like, so that the conversations are captured and also in an asynchronous way, because that really can transcend both in the office and I think, or in person and
Yeah.
person.
So using the asynchronous to say, like, does this even need to be a meeting? Is this something that we can continue to work offline or individually or over Teams or Slack or whatever it is? Okay. So I'm going to move us on just for the sake of time. So here's a few things to think about in terms of some criteria for hybrid success. And again, this is a result of that meta study that I did. So you could boil the success criteria down into 4 categories. First is safety. If you're going to get people together, making sure that everybody's vaccinated, making sure that COVID protocols are in effect, and that everybody feels safe. And if not, giving folks the opportunity and the option to gracefully bow out. Okay. I will just say, as we've been getting back to as we've been going back in person, a lot of my clients, it's like they're ignoring that COVID is even a thing. And it's making, and I've been getting like the sidebars, hey, we really should be wearing masks. How come we're not enforcing that? Physical space. This is the number that tended to pop up in most of the research that I did. At least 1/3 of people are together and in person. So here's what that means. If it's less than 1/3, you default to virtual. Everybody goes virtual. If it's more than 1/3, fine, then we can do a hybrid. But it's less than 1/3, then we're going to say everybody's going to be in virtual, because why not, right? And you got to have a real compelling reason not to do that. So support, making sure that support staff is on call and on hand. It does take more work. It does take more people. It takes a tech host. See Heather Martinez. It takes a tech host to be able to support hybrid functions. And then technology. Your clients have got to invest. They've got to have good headsets. They've got to have good audio. The video doesn't even matter that much, I would say. It's important, but what really matters is the audio, that we be able to hear each other clearly. If I didn't see you, I could muscle through it. But if I can't hear you, if it's popping, if there's static, if there's bad audio, that's really, really hard to get over. So again, coming at this from a human perspective, these are some ground rules that I always suggest when I'm working in a hybrid context. So first, removing some distractions. So when you're working with others, clear away anything that might be competing for your attention. This is not really a hybrid rule. This is just a good work rule. I mean, how many times did you go into an in-person meeting and somebody was sitting there with their laptop banging away on email and not really paying attention to the meeting that they were in, right? But the same is especially true of in hybrid. So clear distractions, and I'll give you facilitators a hint. Show your hands if you can. Because if you can show your hands when you're facilitating, you are clearly sending the message that you are not on email. Plus, you can use your hands to express a little bit more. We'll talk about this when we get to presence. And it's just it becomes another channel for you to communicate. Go into hybrid with an attitude of wonder. Lori and Heather and Rachel have heard this one before. As in, I wonder what's going to break today. If something breaks, your curiosity is rewarded. If nothing breaks, you can be pleasantly surprised. No sidebars. This is that thing that I was talking about before, where the one guy whispers to the other guy. No whispering to the person sitting next to you, because that excludes your virtual colleagues and that erodes trust. And then webcams on. Now, this is the ground rule that I like to use. Webcams on if your background and bandwidth permit. Keep your webcams on. It's just easier to work with people if you can actually see them, right? There's hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution that have trained us to look at each other in the eye. This is all right, I'm going to geek out. I'm going to go off script for a second. Did you know that humans are really the only primates where you can see the whites of their eye? If you think about gorillas, chimpanzees, they don't really have that. It's like, okay, well, why is that relevant? Because that's how we know where the other person is looking. We are social learners. We learn from each other. Facial expressions are very important to human connection. Okay. So webcams on if bandwidth and background permit. Hermika, don't worry. I'm not going to share that at the real offsite. I just think it's kind of geeky and fun. All right. I'd like to hear from you. What are some of your favorite ground rules? So what would you suggest? Ask for what you need. I love that one. Make requests. Back from breaks on time. Yeah, I will just say, if you're doing like a session where you've got multiple breaks, all you got to do is start the first one on time. They fall in line after that one. If you lose it after the first one, forget about it. They'll be late every single time after that. Build in breaks, mute if you're not talking, everyone participates, be all in or all out. Love that one. Single tasking, setting regular breaks, shutting off notifications. Nice. Establish a strong foundation, roles, expectations. Leaving room for others to share, one speaker at a time. Have a backup device. That's always a good one. Asynchronous by default, i.e. don't just schedule meetings to have a meeting. Or if you're going to schedule a meeting, just share what's the purpose of the meeting. What's the outcome? What would you like to achieve as a result of this meeting? Use the hand raise feature. Ask when you need clarification. Love it. Okay, again, just for the sake of timing, I'm going to move us on. Thank you for sharing these. I will share them back with you. One of them, back to the idea of interruptions, maybe you've heard this one before. This is the one sip pause. Okay, so to avoid those collisions where I'm speaking, oh wait, no, Lori's speaking, oh Heather's speaking, and you go, I go, you go. When you're done speaking, just have a your favorite beverage handy and take a sip. That's all you got to do. In fact, if you're online, I'd recommend you just have a cup as a prop. There's nothing actually in here, right? Lori's modeling. Thank you for that. So you could say something like, what are your questions? And what you're doing is you are clearly signaling that you are done talking and it's time for the next person to speak. And what that also does is it allows all the ones and zeros to zip from wherever they are to wherever they're going to allow lag to catch up. That way you don't have to worry about stepping on each other. So the one sip pause. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about participation. How is it that you keep energy and engagement high? Again, some of you have already heard this. This is slightly twisted for hybrid. If you've been part of my virtual facilitation workshop, I've modified some of these. One of them is to avoid movie mode. Unfortunately, I'm doing it right now. I'm standing here lecturing at you. I'm the only person that's talking. And when one person talks, it's like, ma, 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 ma. It's like, the adults from Peanuts, right? Where it just starts to drone for a while. This is something that you'll see newscasters do this, but do variation in voice. Ideally, if you can have a male and a female who go back and forth, that variation in voice will keep people active and engaged if you're doing briefings and presentations. Pad your time. Things take longer in hybrid. They just do. It'll take longer for people to get oriented to the meeting, to the tool. It just takes longer. This is a great practice that one of my clients was doing, and I've since picked it up. Quit defaulting to the 60-minute meeting. Default to 45 minutes. Allow that 15 minutes to reset, transition, get your head in the right space, catch up, and prepare for the next thing. So default to 45-minute meetings. I've been seeing some clients that have actually been doing this, and they all report that breakneck, we're going to go and have 8 to 10 meetings in a day. Hermika, I'm kind of talking to you here. It's relieving the pressure just to have that little bit of a break. And finally, to summarize all of these, don't try to cram 10 pounds of stuff into a 2-pound bag. If you're trying to get work done with folks, right, especially if you're in a meeting, don't have 10 outcomes. Say, we got to get these 10 things done. Say, no, we're going to do these 2 things, or maybe even just this one thing. Because there's a tendency to want to try to, we got to get all this done quickly. There's that urgency. But that urgency, it can be exclusive, and it's exhausting for the people that you're working with. I've got you for the next 45 minutes. We're going to do this one thing, and that's it. If we get done, we're finished. Okay, moving on. I want to do a quick check-in at this point, just to see how you're doing. If you don't mind, please find your way back to the Menti. Again, some of you have seen this before. This is one of my favorite tools. You may have to like stretch it open. This is the mood meter. And you can think of this as a periodic table of emotions. So you've got energy along the vertical axis, going from low to high. You've got pleasantness on the horizontal axis, again, going from low to high. So just drop a pin based on whatever your mood is at this moment. So I got happy, grateful, thoughtful, enraged. I'm kidding. Nobody's enraged. Okay. Tense. I have that effect on people. And if it's okay, I'd like to put Rachel on the spot. Don't worry, Rachel, you'll be great at this. Rachel, what would you say the value of a check-in is? Why would you ever want to do a check-in?
Because it's allowing people to be human, and you get a chance to kind of feel where they are and maybe change the energy, or just understand where people are and where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of fun.
And in the hybrid context, what this does is it defeats that reduction, that not being able to experience you as I would if I was in the room. Rather than making up stories, do they like me? Is this working? Is everybody hating me right now? Which are the stories that go on in my head. I can do a check-in with something like the mood meter. That helps me because it lets me know where people stand. It also, as Rachel was saying, it brings some mindfulness, some self-awareness to people's state. Let's do another one. Lori, I got one of these from you. I think this will be cool. If you don't like the mood meter, or if it's a little bit too, dare I say, touchy-feely for you, there are some alternatives. Here are 3 that you can choose from. Based on a scale of cat, sheep, prince, what is your mood? And so you can pick whichever one you want, the cat, the sheep, or the prince, right? Prince. And what would you say your mood is? Pick whichever one of these you want, right? I wouldn't share all 3 of them at the same time. I'm just sharing this with you. You know, pick the one that you want to share with the folks that you're working with. I've got, there's 2 for Prince, which is great. Nice. I have to get a little bit of color commentary on this one. So if you dropped a pin somewhere on this, I'm going to invite you to go off mute and tell me which one you picked and what's behind that. And we'll just do a couple of these. So go ahead and go off mute. I'll call on you. Which one did you pick and what's behind it? Yeah, Rachel, please.
So I am the leaping sheep, and I just found it fun, and I wanted to do that one.
Nice. Thank you very much. Okay, let's do one more. Somebody else who dropped a pin somewhere. Going once, twice. Okay, somebody who dropped a pin on the Prince scale, because that's my favorite one. Who did that? And would like to speak to it. Going once. Oh yeah, once it pause. Oh yeah, Lori, thank you.
I always am speaking, so I try to leave a little space for somebody else. Okay, I've got the Prince look, which is like really hybrid meetings.
Oh, the 4? Okay.
Yeah, we used to do face to face, and then we had to all learn how to do virtual. And now we need to learn how to do hybrid, and I'm sort of pissed off and resistant about it. So I'm like, really? That's why that Prince.
I know, right? I just wanted to draw on walls, and now I got to be like this like tech host producer thing. This is not the job I signed up for. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So again, the value of a check-in. So these are just a couple of ways that you can keep energy and engagement high. What are some other ways that you can do that in a hybrid context? Okay, so finding your way back to Menti. How else, in addition to check-ins, energizers, how else might you keep energy and engagement high in a hybrid environment? Get up and stretch and move. Yep, love stretching. Yep, we can do some stretching together. Music, jolts. What is a jolt? I don't think I know that one. Is that like hooking electrodes up to somebody?
Oh no. It's sometimes it can be a brain teaser. It can be a fun question for people to answer. Whatever.
Got it. Okay.
Get them off mute, get them talking, get them doing something different.
Thank you for that. Modeling grace. Improv breaks, ensuring there's a break every hour. Asking them to write, sketch, draw in the physical space using analog. Okay, so there's some alignment there. Drawing, writing on paper. A breathing break, guided breathing. Okay, this is really cool. So for those of you that use Mentimeter, Menti just dropped a whole bunch of new polling formats. And one of them is actually a guided breath exercise. I don't have it in this. I don't think I do. I might. I'll go back and take a look at it later. I may have it in this one, but there is a guided breathing, which is sort of like that Breathe app on your phone, where like you get an expanding circle and then comes back down again, and it is really cool. I've tried it a couple of times with groups. Okay, comfort breaks, bio breaks, standing desks. Definitely. Some of you know how I feel very strongly about my standing desk. Energizing activities, giving prizes at short breaks. Okay, so I'll share a prize that I use. I wasn't counting on showing this. Let's say that I'm working with a group and I've posed a question out there and I get crickets and nobody says anything. And then one brave soul speaks up. You know, I'm like, Heather, thank you so much for speaking up. You get the first Penguin Award. Yay! And what the first Penguin Award is that if you think about the first penguin jumps off the ice floe into the ocean, and two things can happen. Either he gets the fish or the seal gets him. So there's bravery there, so you get the first Penguin Award. Thank you for that. So you can do like virtual prizes and things. Getting swag, meals, very cool. I think there's a service out there called XYZ Pizza that will synchronize pizza delivery across the whole US. I think I've got that right? Laura's nodding. Pizza Time is what it's called. Pizza Time. Check that one out. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So moving on to tech tips. Being technology agnostic. This is really hard for our clients because it's like they adopt a technology and it's just like it gets embedded like a tick. And trying to convince a group that Teams is not the best or they should try using something like Mural, it's like, you know, swimming upstream. So at least we, you know, who are a little bit on the outside, we have a little bit more flexibility. There are some really, really cool platforms that are coming out that are designed for our work. I'm going to put a shameless plug in for Clayboard right now. I'm really excited about what they're doing. But I think that we're only doing ourselves a disservice if we get too fixed on any one platform. Some of you may remember the days before Mural. There was something called Board Thing, which was great. It did exactly what we wanted to do. And then it was terrible. And so we had to go looking for something else. And then Mural came along, right? But there's always something that's better out there. Experiment early and often. Be kind of an omnivore of different methods. You know, just like I said, Menti's got some new polling templates that are out there. Try them out. See what's going on. Plan specifically how you use communications. So here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of existing communications within organizations. There's newsletters, there's emails. This is getting clear on the purpose of those things. At an operational level, when we get together, here's what this is for. Here's what this particular meeting is for. Here's what that meeting is for. Here's what this email is for. Here's when we use Slack or a text or, you know, Teams or an email. So being clear and prescriptive. And then finally, the last part is establishing a meeting tempo. Here's an example of a meeting tempo. You don't have to read the whole thing, but I think you get the idea. Inside an organization, I think it's a very good idea to have a meeting tempo where you say, okay, here's what we do on a daily basis. Here's how often we do it. Here's the timing. Here's the attendees. Here's the outcome. And then there's the approach or the agenda, if you like. To get very clear on here's why and when and how often we meet. Because otherwise, meetings just tend to run away. There should be a place for every reason that you get together. If not, you'll wind up in a case where you've got 8, 10, 12 meetings a day and not even know what you're doing there. Again, I'm going to go quickly through this. We'll skip this one just because we're at the end of time. We'll skip this one. Okay, one more for Menti. Thank you for hanging with me a little bit later. We're going to do a this or that. Okay? This first one, it's just to see if this is working. We're going to do a this or that. Are you a dog or a cat person? What would you say? Dog is out ahead. Cat is catching up. Oh, we're back to 50-50. 8 people have weighed in. Okay. Looks like it's an even split. Oh, still an even split? Wow, this one's really close, guys. And it looks like it's dog. Okay, I'm calling it for dog. Ice cream or frozen yogurt? I got 10 of these. We're going to do them quick. They get tougher. Ice cream or frozen yogurt. Wow, ice cream. This is surprising. I didn't expect ice cream to be way out ahead like that. Okay. All right. This one's divisive. This one can lead to blood. Mac or PC? Oh boy. And we got 14 people. Gosh, darn it. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Oh, Rachel reminded me that this is scheduled at 5:30. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. For some reason I had it was at 5. I guess I can slow down a bit. All right, now, would you prefer a phone call or a text? These are going to get tougher. And you don't get to pick this. It depends, right? That's the thing of this or that. You don't get to say that. You got to pick one side or the other. Heather's like, what's a phone call? Yeah. Okay. I wish for this one there were 3, like phone call, text, or email, just to see what the preference was. This or that. Are you an early bird or a night owl? Okay, this one's pretty close. By the way, let me slow down just for a tick. If I was doing this with a team, there's a lot that you can take from this. Like, for example, if I'm an early bird and my boss is Heather and she's a night owl and she's emailing me stuff at 11 p.m., I'm making up all kinds of stories about that. It's like, gosh, why is she working so late? Am I supposed to work too late? Will she think I'm lazy if I'm not working that late? Am I supposed to respond now, 11 p.m.? Doesn't she have any boundaries? Like, just that can cause conflict in a team, especially if they're hybrid, because they don't have the opportunity to get together and straighten all that stuff out. There's no space for straightening things out. Introvert or extrovert? What would you say? Well, the introverts are a little faster. Okay, here come the extroverts. Interesting, interesting. So this does not reflect the U.S. population. U.S. population, at last I looked, 51% introverted, 49% extroverted. Okay. Again, if we were doing this in person, right, because all the extroverts are meeting in person. Thank you for that, Heather. 3 more of these. Would you say you're early starting or pressure prompted? Yeah, so again, I'm gonna pick on Heather again. Let's say that Heather and I are working together. We're on a project. She's early starting, which means like as soon as she's got the project, she wants to get to work on it. I'm a little bit more pressure prompted. So what that means is that I'm probably going to wait until the last minute to get something done because, well, hey, if you wait till the last minute, it only takes a minute. Now, what is that going to do to Heather? She's going to start feeling the crunch. She's going to feel a pinch of that. Okay. By the way, let me zoom out on this activity for a second. This is something that I think these questions are really good to ask in any hybrid team so that you can just get to know each other's personality styles and type. Because preference matters a lot, and preference can account for, I think, a lot of the conflict that teams experience with each other. So let's do a few more. Don, I didn't know that. Facilitators tend to be introverts. I wonder if you'd be willing to speak to that. Why is that?
I remember reading a couple of articles about it in the MBTI world, and I think it might have to do with, you know, when you're not the content leader, you're the process guy, and so you're going to be more of an observer and taking it all in. So I don't know, yeah. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I know I'm an introvert. I know I don't want to blow anybody's cover, but I know at least 4 people on the call who also are. Yeah, Rachel, Hermika, and I that's really interesting. I always, as a graphic facilitator, I really see my role more as a listener than anything else. You know, I love listening to people, especially if they're smarter than I am, which is not hard, right? So you know, going into these groups and hearing what they have to say, you know, it's really really interesting to hear smart people and professionals talk about their job. Kimberly, what's coming up?
Well, the way I've learned really what introvert and extrovert is where you get your energy from, right? Introverts get their energy from being alone. Yeah. Extroverts get their energy from other people. So it really is about, I can be as vivacious as you would like me to be, the occasion calls for, but I'm not going out partying that night. That's what happens. I'm so exhausted because people drain my energy. I'm going home and, you know, petting my dog.
Yeah, that's a really great way of looking at it. So where you get your energy from. Thank you, Kimberly. All right, let's do the last couple. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Or there's always room for improvement. If it's not broke, don't fix. Wow, look at that. 100%. I usually don't see that one. So again, this is just taking a look at people's type, temperament, personality, preference. And there are both types. Apparently there's not those types in this room, which is kind of interesting. I am slightly, Kimberly, just to go behind the scenes on this one, I am slightly riffing on the Myers-Briggs on this one, okay? I'm borrowing some of the language from it. And in this one, I'm using the language of sensing, because this is something that sensors would say. If it's not broke, don't fix it, especially the SJs. And this is, there's always room for improvement, which is the more intuitive, especially the NTs. And about 73% of the US population are sensors. And whatever the remainder is, I'm not a sensor, I couldn't tell you, is intuitive, right? And so I think it's really interesting that we've got like not only introverts, but it seems like we've got some intuitives that are in the room too. All right, let's move on. Two more. Same thing. Fine details, big picture. Where would you see yourself? I have a theory about how this is going to stack out, and yep, so far so good. Fine details or big picture? Okay, and then the last one. Tough or tender? How would you describe yourself? Now remember, we started with dog, cat, ice cream, frozen yogurt, okay? So these progressively get a little bit tougher, a little bit closer, a little bit spicier, a little bit hotter, to really, bring up some how do we see ourselves. And I think doing something like this in a team environment is a good idea just to get to know each other's type and temperament, okay? All right, let's go ahead and move on. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk about personal presence. And when I'm talking about your presence, I am not talking about your online media social presence. I'm not talking about how many likes you've got on Facebook. What I am talking about is how you physically show up when you are in a hybrid work environment. And guess what? You're probably going to be on camera. So one of the tips that I would give you would be to watch the camera. I can say that with this group, I think, I hate Microsoft Teams. The reason for it is that if I see the gallery, Microsoft Teams, for whatever reason, it puts the gallery of faces down at the bottom of the screen. And so that means I'm looking at people's forehead. And not everybody has as pretty a forehead as I do, right? It's just not great body language, when you're looking down here. So whatever you can do to remind yourself to watch the camera, I think it's a good thing. There's some technology fixes out there for it. One thing that I've seen recently is called Center Cam, which is this little USB camera that hangs over the top of your monitor. I actually have something a little bit, cheaper than that works. I'll show it to you if you want to see it. Here we are. So this is my studio, right? And I've got this plexiglass hook that hangs over my monitor with a webcam attached to it, right? And what it does is it basically turns my screen into a teleprompter. So like right now, I'm looking dead at Heather. I'm hi Heather. I can, and hi. I'm looking right at her, and I'm giving the impression that I'm making eye contact, because back to that thing about human evolution, we are trained and to believe that this means that we're paying attention. And if we have a second screen, even if we're paying attention, we're sending the message that we're not. So next one is dress the part. Now, here's what I mean by that. Somebody actually dropped into chat, into the Q&A, what is your favorite color for a shirt when you're doing virtual work or hybrid meetings? I'm not going to answer that directly, but what I would say is that it's important to, don't take this the wrong way, it's important to get dressed in front of the camera, not in front of people. But what happens is that the camera will actually change how you appear. Let me give you an example. Let's say I was wearing a white shirt. Okay, so watch my skin here. See how dark I just got? Okay, let's do that again. So light shirt, dark shirt. So it's a good idea to actually just start a web meeting with yourself, hang up different outfits that you're considering wearing, right? And seeing what happens to the camera when it's trying to do what's called automatic white balance, okay? Try to avoid tight, close set patterns. I haven't worn seersucker in 2.5 years, okay? Solids are pretty good, but again, it's best just to try it, where to try it out on camera to see how it shows up. Learn from the professionals. Here's what I mean by that. Yes, I had a seersucker shirt. I really like my seersucker shirt, Rachel. I'll wear it one of these days. Learn from the professionals. The good news is, hey, there's TV. You can watch news anchors. You can watch people on TV. You can see how they show up. You can see how they present themselves. YouTube streamers. I play a lot of video games. I know this is weird. I like to watch people play video games. And I learn a lot from streamers and the technology that they use, the different effects that you can actually pull into it. For example, this is called a lower third. It's loading very slowly for right now. The idea, it's just a little name tag that can pop up. I learned that watching a video game streamer. I just thought that was cool. So there's plenty of opportunity out there for you to watch people who do this stuff professionally and get some good ideas. Finally, I said that this one was coming. I can't recommend this enough. If you're really concerned about your personal presence, if you want to be your best self on camera, stand up. You have a lot more vocal control. You are opening up your lungs. Your diaphragm has got a lot more range. And so you're able to have more timbre in your voice. You can control the highs and lows in your voice if you're standing. When was the last time you saw a church choir that sat down to sing a song? They don't do it. They need to have that vocal range and stand up in order to be able to do that. Not only that, you'll find that there's a couple of other things. First of all, you can use your body a lot more if you're doing the weatherman effect like I am. You can point to things. You can say, okay, we are here right now. And this is a lot more organic and natural than just projecting a screen somewhere. Finally, tell me if I'm wrong on this one. I would bet that if you stand for most of the day, you will find that you come off that day with more energy than if you were sitting all day. I would bet you, okay? Tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, try it out. If you haven't done the standing desk thing, grab a milk crate, whatever it is, put your laptop on top of it, and just give it a try for a day or two. I find that if I'm sitting all day, I am like drained at the end of it. My energy is just done. But I don't even have a chair anymore, and it just works, and I feel like I've got, energy at the end of the day. So that's my notes on personal presence. Again, this is not just about me. I would love to hear some thoughts from you. So if you don't mind, find your way back to the Mentimeter. How else might you enhance your personal presence in a hybrid environment? What might you do?
Hi, Brian. It's Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
I guess depending on your level of comfort with music, emojis, things like that, I would just be a bit creative and not like music is a really interesting way, or if you put it into the chat, you have a way to let people know either there's a countdown or there's ways to do it, especially if you have a producer that can let everyone know that you're getting ready to start or you're
Very
changing
nice.
gears. I kind of learned that from the liberating structures people, how to do visuals like in the chat.
Visuals in chat. I'd love to see an example of that. I don't know if I'm tracking exactly.
Yeah.
If you can show me, but the thing that you mentioned about what we'll call very cool. Yeah, so like drawing a line, for example, and Heather's use of an emoji, whatever that means. Okay, got it. This is pretty good. Thanks, guys. Now I'm getting, okay, that's what you mean by visuals in chat. So the other thing that you pointed at, which is like what you could call the waiting room, that experience at the very beginning, I think that one's very important because that's the first experience that your participants are going to get of whatever meeting you've got planned, whatever working group you've got planned. And if you want it to be high energy, then, put in a high energy video in there, right? Pick something that reflects the environment and the atmospherics that you want. So welcoming people in by name, getting out of your PJs. I'm not so good at that. I am wearing my PJs from the pants down. I'm not going to show you, but trust me, it's PJs from the waist down. Good audio, camera ready, smile. In between breaks, stretch, getting the blood and brains going. Fun socks and shoes. I did have a group do that, right? Say, all right, everybody show your shoes. Most people were wearing flip-flops and slippers, which was kind of funny. Being prepared, being aware of framing, lighting, your background, your use of background and what's going on there, that's really important. If you've got people that are wandering back behind your background, it can be a little distracting depending on what's going on. So just being mindful of what's going on back there. Having a checklist, sticking to it. Yeah, these are great ideas. Thank you. All right, let's keep going. So that's it. I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to leave enough time to get to the Q&A. So let's do some checkouts using traffic lights. So based on where we stand now, what do you think? Hybrid, is it not for me? I can live with it. Yay, hybrid. And it's okay. I don't expect very many green lights. I've never heard of Brian's. Okay. So thank you very much for that. I could do more of it. I'll leave this going for just a second, but I would like to get to your Q&A. So let's see if we can do that. Oh, there's the keep in touch. What is your favorite color shirt on Zoom? This is personal preference, blue. I'm wondering what other people think. What's your favorite color for shirt on Zoom? And feel free to go off mute for this one. What would you say?
Green.
Green? Why do you like green? Well, how does that work with like your green screen?
I don't have a green screen. That's why I wear green.
That's not a green screen? Oh, that's so cool.
No.
All right. I mean, I like my Tech Host t-shirt too. That's another favorite. All right. Let's do the next one then. Can you explain the technology you use to facilitate in Zoom? So camera, mic, earphones, visual material, etc. Yeah, so I will do that. So I'll drop in the microphone that I use. Actually, Heather, do you wanna answer this one as well? By the way, if you don't know Heather Martinez, she is the director of what's called the Tech Host Academy. So on the technology side of things, on the hosting side of things, Heather Martinez is a fabulous resource. Heather, if you even want to drop a link to the Tech Host Academy in chat, that would be great.
Sure. I can do that. But
do you want to?
I want to warn everyone that I bring in experts like Brian and Muddy and other presenters to show off all of their great gear, because what I like to show is that I can facilitate and run and tech host using the minimal of technology. So I do have a great headset because I believe audio is one of the best things. I would look for a gamer's headset. I'll put it in the chat. It's a Logitech G433. As far as lights, I don't have my lights on right now, but I do have a ring light that is above my desk, and it lights up both me and my desktop for when I am teaching online using my IPvo camera. So I think that's about all I have to share.
I actually dropped in the G433. It's got a boom microphone, which is always going to give you better pickup. I also dropped in a Blue Parrot, which I like. I'm not using either one of those. I'm using kind of the expensive version of it because I've got 4 kids that run around upstairs. So this one's actually noise isolating. You really can't hear anything that's outside of this sphere in front of my face. And so the one that I'm using happens to be an Audio Technica. This is a professional sound booth headset. Same thing. I've got, just a typical Logitech camera. There's nothing special about it, and a ring light. And I hope that answers the question because I'm going to mark it as answered. We're going to move on. How did you facilitate / moderate Menti? Okay, so let's go behind the scenes on that one. Let's see. So Menti is pretty cool, and it just the more I learn about it, the more I like it. I'm going to show you what it looks like from my side. Hang on just a second for me. I'll stop sharing my screen for a quick second. Okay. Actually, and let me share my other screen. We'll do it like this. So once you launch Menti, it actually has this behind the scenes kind of control panel, which is really cool. This is the way, by the way, that I was able to moderate some of the comments that we got. And I'm able to, for example, turn on the QR code, right? You can see it behind me right now. So I click that switch, it turns on the QR code. I can turn on the vote code. It just gives me a lot of options. This is basically my go forward, go backward. And it gives me a few other controls that are behind that. So I've got 2 screens. One of them is really the monitor that I'm using to project from. And then I've got the other one where it's Zoom and then my behind the scenes controls for Menti. I hope that answers the question. Let me go back to this. If I didn't, feel free to go ahead and go off mute and let me know that I didn't answer it properly. Let's do the next one. The smaller font is hard to read for my eyes. Just saying. Okay, I will fix that on the next one. Thank you. Let's see. We'll do the next one. In-person meetings, movement of the facilitator can at least seem to keep everyone engaged. When hybrid, what is, we're going to say, the equivalent of that physical movement? Well, I think it's the same thing. It's physical movement. That's my own belief on it. Is to be up, be moving, and to inject a little bit of energy into it. Whether you're in person or online, I don't think that it works to have whoever is facilitating to say, okay, thank you everyone for coming together. We're going to be doing some strategic planning. We'll be together in the room for the next 3 days. So please try to stay engaged. It just doesn't work, right? Even if you're an introvert, which, we've already established I am, you kind of have to turn up your own energy just a little bit, because if you want that reflected back to you from the participants, you got to put it out there. Love to know if somebody has some other thoughts on this one. What's the equivalent of physical movement? Does anybody have any thoughts on this one? And you can just take yourself off mute. If not, wait, let me do my 1-step pause. Oh yeah, Hermika, go ahead.
You can get people to get up and move, especially if, it's after lunch or a heavy meal or something. You can just get people to get up and move and shake it off, or say, how do you want to be? I want to be open. I want to be this. I mean, just kind of get people to do that on the camera. They want
Love
to.
it. Okay, so my favorite thing that I saw, this was for a virtual meeting. It was for it was a fundraising meeting for a not-for-profit that's involved in charitable works, right? Here was the way that they kicked off the meeting. It was amazing. So without even telling people, when you came into the meeting, they were playing, Sister Sledge, We Are Family. And all of the facilitators, they were in there, they were dancing, we are family. And they just let it go, and like people were coming in, it's like, the first reaction was like, well, what is this? This is kind of weird. And then it's like, no, this is cool. They got into it, and like everybody was dancing. We had 300 people dancing at this just impromptu dance party, and then we started the meeting. And just the way that it set the tone and the atmosphere, I mean, you couldn't beat it. It was great. Getting people up, moving around. Heather, what's coming up?
I just think you modeled the way. I think you've done that throughout this entire session. I've found this entertaining. I'm having a really hard time multitasking. Thank you. And I think that just the penguin thing was quite a surprise. I was like, as soon as you went like this, I was like, am I supposed to catch that? Like, so no, I think the way you've modeled that throughout today.
Catch the penguin. Thank you, Heather. All right, let's see if we've got a next one. Tips for closed captioning and translation. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. This is not one that I use a lot. I know that you can just turn it on. It's like right now the live transcript is running. Has anybody used translation before and can speak to it?
I've
Kathy?
used it.
Mhm.
I've used it, but I was just curious. So yeah, I was in a really cool coaching supervision group where I heard it in English, but
Mhm.
everyone was speaking Russian. And when I spoke English, they heard Russian.
Wow.
And that was all done on Zoom. But I'm just thinking and it worked really well, and it was a small group, but I'm just thinking for hybrid,
Right.
you would need to have 2 translators. They can't translate for more than 45 minutes before switching.
Mhm.
And the line of sight on that in a room is just, I'm just trying to think that through. And the closed captioning for people who I work a lot with people who don't speak the language that I'm facilitating in.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just trying to think how that would work. And it's just accessibility in general.
To be very honest with you, well, and then I'll hear from Heather. Most of my clients, when they've hired me, they have already had the solution ready to go. They've been doing it long enough that they have the interpreters, they have the translators. They like tell me, oh, and by the way, people will be able to choose which language channel they want within Zoom. I've never had to set it up. My clients have always had it. Heather, did you have another answer on this one?
Yeah, I was just going to say pretty much the same thing. But once you go for that live transcription, it doesn't have to just happen in Zoom. Anyone in person, too, could be wearing a headset and they just download the app on their phone, choose the language, and then they can hear it in their language. And that's that live transcription. It's like a vendor that you're purchasing, and then you can use it either online or live.
And is that Otter AI? Have I got that one?
No, Otter AI is just something I use to edit closed captions.
Hmm.
I don't, there's other ones out there. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I just remember graphic recording, listening to the person in French, and I do not know French, and I was hearing it in English wearing the headset. So I know it can happen in person too.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Got it.
Okay. And I think we're back to the beginning again. Okay, so thank you, everybody.